very good morning to you. It's good to see you this Tuesday morning, actually the first day of the month of August. So I hope that you're well this morning, ready to face the day. Welcome to the show. My name is Winnie Lubembe, and of course the show is Your World. So it is Breastfeeding Week, and as we all know, breastfeeding is one of the most effective ways to ensure child health and survival, and yet currently fewer than half of infants under 6 months old are exclusively breastfed. And as we kickstart the World Breastfeeding Week today, which again will go on until the 7th, of course, the WHO reports that more than 500 million working women are not given basic maternity provisions. Many more find themselves unsupported when they go back to work. And Kenya is one of the countries that is yet to attain the global recommended targets of exclusive breastfeeding of 70%. So the big question is, how do we change this? And what provisions should be strengthened just to make sure that we provide enough support for working moms? So that is the subject of our conversation today, and as per usual, we have a very simple question for you this morning. All right, and of course the question reads: how can working moms be supported to ensure adequate breastfeeding? Again, how can working moms be supported just to ensure adequate breastfeeding? You know the drill by now. At NTV Kenya, both on Facebook and on Twitter, is how you can reach us, or better, give us a call. The lines are officially open, all right? And of course, the question is very simple. How can working moms be supported to ensure adequate breastfeeding? There is a lot of conversation around the paid maternity leave, okay? And of course, we all know here in the country is around 3 months, but there are conversations to, and especially from the WHO, to have at least a minimum of 18 weeks right, of maternity leave. So I don't know, for all the moms who are watching us this morning, what do you think? Should we have like 6 months paid maternity leave so that we have enough time to breastfeed our children? But all the same, again, what are some of the ways that you think working moms will be supported just to make sure they, breastfeed their babies according to the recommended time? So help us with this conversation. This morning, we have Veronica Kirogo, who is the Director of Nutrition and Dietetic Services from the Ministry of Health. Good to have you this morning. How are you doing?
Thank you, and good morning.
All
Thank you to have me here.
Karibu sana. And very important to have you this morning to have this conversation. And we also have Mr. Ismail Teta, who's the Chief of Nutrition, UNICEF Kenya. Good to have you this morning as well. Karibu sana to the conversation. I know this is like a very special week for both of you because breastfeeding, it's important, and we all know how integral this is. But Veronica, I'm just going to start with you very quickly just to see how we're doing as a country, because again, from the Ministry of Health, the statistics say we're yet to get there in terms of, exclusive breastfeeding up to 70%. So how are we doing? What is the situation like in the country?
Thank you, Winnie. Let me first by saying that, breastfeeding, why breastfeeding? Yeah. Breastfeeding is very important because it's a foundation for all children. Okay. It is the gold standard for nutrition, and therefore every child should not be denied the right to good nutrition. As a country, we have about 60% of the children 6 months being exclusively breastfed. Yeah. And that's the guideline for feeding, because we say for infant feeding, children should be fed exclusively on breast milk for the first 6 months of life, without even water. Even when we're in Lodwa, that milk, breast milk, is sufficient for the baby. The baby does not require milk, water. We also say it should be continued after 6 months to a period we call complementary feeding, from 6 to 2 years or beyond. Okay. And there, because the breast milk is not sufficient, we introduce what we call appropriate complementary food. Okay. But the mothers continue with the breastfeeding. And therefore, as a country, having 6 in 10 children are the ones who are meeting the gold standard, there's still a long way to go. And therefore, the conversation this week is looking at, we know there are working mothers who have 3 months paid maternity leave. They have to go back to work, but we say they have to breastfeed for 6 months exclusively. So how do we support the mothers? And that's why we are celebrating this World Breastfeeding Week, which the theme is enabling breastfeeding making a difference for working parents.
Yeah.
Because how do they sustain the 6 months,
That's true.
yet they are back to work?
Absolutely. And it's a bit of a challenge because you have to go back to work, you have to be productive, but then again, you might find that in some workplaces there is not that conducive environment where moms can go and, you know, express the milk if they need to or if they want to. Or we have some other workplaces which are really nice and they allow the babies to come in. They have sort of like a daycare for the baby. So it's easy for the mom to work, but at the same time, you know, have enough time to breastfeed as well. So big conversation is then how do we change this so that we make sure all these children are breastfed, at least exclusively, like it's recommended for the first 6 months. Again, and like you said, enabling breastfeeding, making a difference in for working parents, that is the theme for this year. And the big focus is, because we have had these conversations over and over again, right? But why specifically focus on working moms this year? Very quickly before we go to Mr. Isma.
Thank you, Winnie. You know, we have more than half of the women working. And of course, they have to go through the natural way of, you know, being mothers. Yeah. And therefore, it becomes of interest that we also take care of these working parents. Okay. Give them that support to be able to successfully breastfeed and balancing the work and the breastfeeding. Yeah. And
it doesn't have to like sacrifice one for the other.
It's just like the work-life balance. Yes. So here there's a baby that is, you know, has a right to nutrition, but the mother has to work. Yeah. And therefore, as a government, our responsibility is to make sure that there's a enabling policy and legal framework to support the mothers. Okay. And that's why we have the Health Act. Article 71 and 72 that provide for every employer to establish that small room, lactation station, where nursing employees can be able to feed their baby or express. Because previously before that, I know mothers had challenges. Even myself, because I'm past that age, had challenges because where do you express in an office? So the most appropriate at that time is washroom.
Was the washroom.
What about the hygiene?
Yeah, it's not hygienic at all. Yeah.
That's why, as a government, there's that Health Act. It's law that every employer should provide a lactation station with a minimum standard that are set to enable breastfeeding employees to continue with that.
I see that. And even as we talk about working moms, I think the conversation should also extend to moms who are working in informal, you know, working sort of like arrangement setting, right? Because the majority of the times we tend to focus mostly on the office. But what about this mom who sort of like works in a bit informal, it's not structured, it's not, but they have to breastfeed at the end of the day because like you said, all children should be exclusively breastfed. So then what provisions are there for this mom? But before we even talk about that, Mr. Teta, can we just talk about some of the recommendations for infant feeding? Because we all know it, like blanketly, all children should be breastfed exclusively for 6 months. That's it. Right? So can we talk about the recommendations in detail so that we have really, really good sort of like awareness?
Oh, sure, and thank you for having UNICEF here. As we all know, our role actually is to support the government, in this case the Ministry of Health, to ensure that this recommendation for breastfeeding reaches actually all the mothers, including the working mothers. If you take a step back on why are we even celebrating this week, why are we dedicating a full week? Because this is not Kenya. This is worldwide actually, where we decide we should take a pause and remind everyone that breast milk is the first vaccine, is the first immunization for a child. For a baby. Many people call it actually the white blood because we know the red one. Breast milk is full of antibiotics, and the recommendation, the WHO, UNICEF recommendation, actually it's to initiate just within the first hour breastfeeding after birth. Then continue exclusively, as Veronica mentioned, up to 6 months, without even water, without anything else. It's enough. breast milk actually it's over 90% made of water, so there is no need to complement that. And then after 6 months and up to 2 years and maybe beyond, to continue with the breastfeeding and now with adequate complementary feeding for children. Why this? It's so important. I've already mentioned that this is the first vaccine from the child. Evidence from research actually shows that exclusively breastfed children actually have less episode of diarrhea and less episode of respiratory infections compared to children who are not exclusively breastfed. So this is really a critical, simple, free things to be done by mothers, but overall by the society.
Okay, all right. And when we talk about how important this is, and that is breastfeeding for the first 6 months exclusively, it's not only beneficial to the baby, but also to the mom, right? Which majority of the times we don't usually focus on that. I was just focusing on on the baby. So do you want to take us through very quickly how beneficial this is for the mom as well?
Yeah, sure. And that's actually a great point. Usually we'll say exclusive breastfeeding or breastfeeding is beneficial for the child, for the mom, for the family, for the society.
That's true.
For the mom, if you look at the clinical side of it, once again, from evidence from a bunch of researches, we know that breastfeeding actually reduces the risk of at least 2 cancers, the ovarian cancers and the breast cancers, by at least 6%. This is important. We also know that by now breastfeeding is also a means of family planning, right? Because when mothers are exclusively breastfed, they don't have their period actually. So this is a way of contraception for mothers and for the family. We should also add that this is free. So the family is actually making a lot of saving from buying milk, from bottle feeding. And this is hygienic. You don't need to wash anything. So we will say it saves time, it saves money for the mothers and for the family.
Absolutely. And I mean, and the most important, I would say, for above everything else, which is equally important, is the fact that the mom bonds with the baby.
Absolutely.
Which is just special. I don't think there's anything that can replace that time when a mom is breastfeeding and bonding with the child. Okay.
I can just quickly add to that, because that's a very important point. It is demonstrated that the IQ, the intellectual quotient of exclusively breastfed children is higher. But the beauty of this is that this is not only linked to breast milk. This is also linked to the connection between the mom and the child during this period of breastfeeding, because some of these, our neuronal connections, are more developed just thanks to this warmth that the child will get during these first 1,000 days. So the period from conceptions to 2 years old. When the bonds between the mom and the child is high, higher also is the neuronal connection and therefore the IQ.
Yeah, look at that. I mean, and there's also a lot of conversation around weight. That also helps with losing weight. So I don't know much about the same. It's just some of the things that we hear. So I don't know whether it's like the truth or the myth or in between. It's like half truth, half myth. But even so, it's recommended and it's special. And I'm pretty sure all the women who are watching us would say, listen, I really want to. I really want to. And the fact that again, like you're saying, Mr. Tete, the fact that within the first hour, it's very important and recommended. But there's some moms who are not able to do so because maybe they don't have milk within that first hour, or others that having several challenges. Or for example, maybe a mom has unfortunately passed and the child is not able to, to breastfeed. So there are very many challenges that could happen within that very first hour. So does that mean that then this child is, and I know this is such a strong word, that is doomed because they were not able to be breastfed within that first hour or the first few hours of their lives? Veronica?
Yes, Winnie, I know, you know, as you have said, they are babies who may be, because of circumstances, the mother has died during delivery. Yeah. They don't have that opportunity to have that gold standard of nutrition. Yeah. But similarly, we also fall back to the WHO and UNICEF guidelines on the infant feeding. And as Dr. Ismail has said, the first feeding guideline is exclusive breastfeeding. Yeah. But what happens to those children? Then the second option is donated human milk. Okay. You know, that can be fed to the baby. And that's why as a government we have set a research at Pumwani Maternity Referral Hospital where we are having the human milk bank. Yes. But so far right now it's benefiting the infants in the newborn in the hospital. Yeah. The third one, if the human milk is not available, then we go to the infant formula. But as a country, we have a law which we call Breast Milk Substitute Act that provides for appropriate marketing and advertising of the milk, the breast milk substitute, what we call infant formula. So that milk is only given to children who really need that because of the, you know, they cannot access the mother's milk. Yeah. And our health workers are there to support, even in breastfeeding counseling. Yeah. You said some mothers are not able. Some are not able because they don't have knowledge on how to place the baby to the breast.
True. We think it's natural, but no.
Yeah.
No.
So we also follow the World Health Organization, what we call the 10 steps of breastfeeding. And that involves even breastfeeding counseling to the mothers. We also do when the mothers are coming for the antenatal clinic, so that by the time the baby comes, the mother is confident that because actually breastfeeding being a natural process, but requires the support for the mother psychologically.
That's true. Yeah. Like they say out here, everything starts from the brain.
Exactly,
so,
exactly.
So if they're not okay mentally, then that would sort of like influence.
That's why we need that. We say breastfeeding is not just a woman's issue, the mother's issue. It's a society issue, the father's issue. And that's why even in the Employment Act, apart from the 3 months fully paid maternity leave, there's 2 weeks paternity leave. Yeah. But that paternity is not for the fathers to go enjoying, but to support the mother. not boarding with the boys, but there to psychologically support the wife to breastfeed. Yeah. That's the essence of the society support for breastfeeding.
I see that. I see that. We literally have like 3 more minutes before we go on a break. And Mr. Tet, I'd want you to also comment on the substitute milk products that are available. I know there's a lot of conversation, and even sometime last year there was a lot of conversation about the same. And a lot of people would say, and this is one of the things that most women would fall back to, the fact that maybe I do not have sufficient milk is the first thing that I would fall back to. And cow milk, goat milk, camel milk, right? All this conversation around the same. And of course, again, health experts, medics would say, no, but that is not recommended. It's not nice because why are you giving your baby cow's milk? But the mom is like, but I don't have milk, right? So I want you to very briefly comment on the milk substitute products and how either safe or, you know, recommended in terms of usage, because Veronica mentioned in some instances where literally there's nothing else, this is where you fall back to.
Apart from the exceptional circumstances mentioned by Veronica, actually the mother passed away. Most of the time when the mother has the necessary support, the milk will always be there. You have the biological process, you have the psychological process. Sure. So it is actually demonstrated that all the mothers are able to breastfeed because the body has been prepared for that since the adolescence. You know that the day there will be a baby, the baby will need the milk. So the issue of breast milk substitutes, it's more a commercial issue than anything else. And that's why Kenya as a country has actually adopted the breast milk substitute code, forbidding the commercializations of this so-called breast milk substitute, because nothing could be substituted to breast milk. The thing is that these substitutes first get the mothers and the fathers lazy. It's so easy to just go and buy. It's very, instead of breastfeeding. But I mentioned initially the antibodies in the breast milk. These are all dead in any other form of milk. So the child is not getting the most from breast milk substitutes. So Kenya has opted that this is not good, just as the international community. And as UNICEF and Ministry of Health, we really encourage the government to enforce this act of on commercialization of breast milk substitutes.
Okay, I see that. And again, like we said, in very special circumstances, it sort of like should be regulated, right? And when we ask the question, how can working moms be supported just to ensure that, you know, there's adequate breastfeeding? One of the persons sent a comment and said that a lot of women are sort of like, I don't want to say lazy, but let me just quote very quickly before we go on a break what he said, and then we'll pick the conversation from there. So this is Yomi James, who says, it's very scary. The new trend of African women in Western countries is that none wants to breastfeed anymore. Breast milk has been replaced with baby food and all these other substitutes. So we'll pick the conversation from there when we come back from the break. But again, keep sending in your views and your comments as far as the question of the day, and that is, how can working moms be supported just to ensure there is adequate breastfeeding? I'll be reading more of your feedback after the break. Stay with us. This is Your World.
Hotel is open for business. Stay in our luxurious rooms, enjoy sumptuous meals and first-class service. An Olympic-sized swimming pool, modern gym and spa and conference facilities are available. Call 0722 205 891 or 0722 205 892.
The Nuclear Power and Energy Agency, NUPEA, is a state corporation under the Ministry of Energy mandated with the development of nuclear power program for electricity generation in Kenya, carrying out research and development of energy technologies and capacity building for the energy sector. To this end, NUPEA coordinates all relevant nuclear infrastructure in the country. For more information, log on to our website and follow us on our social media handles.
To get Nakutazamia as your skiza tune, dial star 811 star 926 hash.
Skiza, non-nation.
Get ready to have your mind blown.
Leg out. Nameless Dania Nyumba, and you're checking out Kwetu Mix.
Dania Kwetu Mix, this is Masi Walker official, live on NTV. Keep it up.
We're bringing you the hottest show in town. From exclusive interviews with the biggest names in the game.
Kitu kikubwa ambacho nimejifunza kuhusu maisha ya ndoa, kwanza lazima itoke ndani. It has to come from within.
Oh yeah. To a DJ set that will knock your socks off.
Watch a party endelee. Kwetu Mix NTV. Monday mpaka Friday. Let's go. Come on.
And snippets from your favorite live performances. Don't miss out on the fun. Tune into Kwetu Mix every weekday from 5 to 6 p.m. only on NTV.
Centum Real Estate offers you an opportunity to own a home at the Two Rivers Development, Mzizi Court Residence. Talk to us today on 0703 262626 or text 2 Rivers to 22365.
All right, so welcome back. The show is Your World. And of course, like we said, this week is a very important week, okay, to all of us, not just for the mothers. Because like we started as said earlier, or no, I think it was you, Veronica, even you, like you said, it's important because this is not the time for the dads to, like, during the 2 weeks paternity, to go and bond with the boys, but to offer support. But at the same time, breastfeeding as well saves the family a lot, right? A lot of things, and of course money included. So it's important, very important week for the entire family, if we can say. And this is between now and the 7th, because we are celebrating the World Breastfeeding Week, and the theme for this year is enabling breastfeeding, making a difference for working parents. All right, and the question that we're asking you today, very, very simple question, is how can working moms be supported to ensure adequate breastfeeding? All right, because like we said, 6 months exclusively, that is what is recommended. But even so, there's so many challenges here and there, gaps here and there, that we're discussing today, just to make sure, you know, that we are able to sort of like fill that and have working moms exclusively breastfeed for 6 months. And like we said, now ideally, in the current situation, it's very difficult for so many mothers. But can we just talk about, very quickly, go through the provisions for the law? Because like I said, there should be, you know, a lactation station. It's important for all the moms. But my biggest concern was for that mom who is in sort of like an informal, you know, sector. Right? So then what happens to them? Because you might find they might not have that room to go either to express or to breastfeed their baby. So then what happens for this mom? Because all of them should be included in this provision.
That's right, Winnie. Yeah, we have actually a lot of women working in the informal settlement. Okay. And as I said, this law does not just, you know, apply to the formal. Yeah. It also applies to the informal employment. And we have some case studies, you know, best practices in our country. If you visit Chuka market, the governor established not just a lactation station, but a creche where mothers who are working in the market can even bring their babies. Yeah, so that's one example of an informal settlement, informal employment supporting mothers. We also have Kisumu, Kibuye Market. They also have a lactation station within there. So it's not just the formal, but also... But should
also cut across.
Yes, because it's just a matter of looking the space where mothers can privately be able to you know, express the breast milk, or maybe if it is sufficient space to bring their children so that they're able to continue with their informal work and breastfeeding. Okay. So the law cuts across. It doesn't discriminate formal.
Yeah. Okay. Then I think it's time we see that, because we always say this, we have the best policies, we have the best laws, but then when it comes to the implementation is where there's a bit of a challenge, because those few places where in the informal employment they have been able to implement this, so then what happens to those areas that have not been able to implement this? Is the government to come in and say, listen, this has to happen or else, because we want to see children breastfed. But even so, Mr. Teta, what are some of the other ways that the sort of like employers, you know, could support support working moms just to ensure that this happens. Because like I said, 3 months of maternity leave, and then they go back to work, and then you're able to express, yes, for those who can, and then you're bottle feeding, you know, which again, there's a lot of conversation around bottle feeding versus exclusively breastfeeding. So then what else, or how else can UNICEF says 18 weeks of paid maternity leave?
I think the government of Kenya actually says 3 months maternity leave, but the act is not saying 3 months maximum, right?
Okay.
And not everyone is a civil servant. That's where we need the champions from the private sector, for instance, to start paving the roads. Ideally, if you are recommending 6 months exclusively, exclusive breastfeeding, we should also aim at least 6 months maternity leave. We do understand that this has implications for the employer, but there is also lots of studies out there showing the economical benefits at large, at country level, of exclusive breastfeeding. So at the end of the day, increasing the maternity leave, it's not actually going to make the country losing in terms of GDP. The evidence is showing otherwise. It is important for our listeners, especially for the employer, to start implementing, you know, those active policies within their workplace, starting with increasing the maternity leave duration, but also colleagues, supervisors, managers need to support lactating mothers. That's critical. That's very important because we have a lot of taboos. This mothers does sometimes really feel ostracized at workplace. Veronica has mentioned having a lactation room. It doesn't need to be a full room, depending on the size of the organization, depending on the wealth of the organization.
And even in the informal employment, like we said.
Exactly. So there are ways to accommodate actually the mothers. One simple thing is to get your policy in front somewhere where everyone can read and see. Right? That's an issue of accountability, because no one could pretend, oh, I didn't know. So we are really encouraging employers to make sure that this is visible, that there are discussions within the staff meetings around these important issues.
All right. And even aside from that, what about like, because then the employer might be like, so how practical is this to me as the employer, in the sense that, do I have to employ someone else to come and, you know, take over your job for the 6 months that you are away and then you come back? Or are there provisions for like flexi hours? And now during COVID-19, a lot of people are working from home. So such provisions when it comes to the law, what exactly does that say? So that then the employer does not feel, but 6 months is a long time, what's going to happen? Because your job will not have to pause because you are away. It has to continue, right? So what are some of these provisions as far as the law is concerned to at least also protect the employer so that they don't feel that they are losing?
Of course, we are, the law understand that, for the mother who has gone back to work, they will need time to go and express.
True.
And it is very clear the law provides for nursing breaks, what we call flexi, so that the mother has up to a maximum of 1 hour in 8 hours working period to go and express. And this is not the 1 hour lunch time. This is an extra one to just allow the mother to go and express. So the law is very clear about the nursing break and that space to express.
All right. And after, so then implementing, what will it take for us as a country to implement this recommendation? Because like Mr. Teta said, yes, the law is there. There's the 3 months paid maternity leave, but it does not say maximum. So what will it take to implement this, at least 6 months of paid maternity leave? What are some of the things maybe that you foresee that has to sort of like change, shift, strengthen here so that this becomes practical for both the employer and the employee? And what will it take for us to implement this?
You know, when making the laws, because yes, it's a public health, it's of public health interest, but also it's also of labor interest. So definitely it's not a Ministry of Health issue. And what from our point we do is advocating, lobbying. Like the whole of this week, last week we had a sensitization with the parliamentarian, still going to this week, and also bringing in, actually the issue of the 18 weeks came in because they are the lawmakers. And you know, when we start that negotiation or that discussion, then of course they will explore on how it can be done. Of course, balancing also with our labor laws, because we know, we are a developing country, and we require also productivity in terms of the companies in the informal sector. But also, we are also using this week. As you say, yes, the laws are there, but we maximize on this week also to sensitize the media, to sensitize the general public that, yes, we need to support working parents in order to be able to successfully breastfeed. So it's a continuous, you know, lobbying, advocating, so that we have a lot of buy-in. We are also having, you know, representative from COTU. We are also engaging with Federation of Kenya Employees, because it's a discussion that we need to have and to see how best as a country do we move forward in terms of facilitating, if it is the recommended 18 weeks, or you know, how else can we be able to support the breastfeeding mothers?
I see that. I see that. All right. And like we said, support is also very important. There's one thing to have the law, but there's also another thing to have the support that the one is needed. We've talked about the men as well, but in a working environment or in a working, you know, setup, how can the men be active champions so that they also support working moms who are breastfeeding? What role do they have to play just to make sure that at the end of the day there's that enough support that breastfeeding moms need?
I think men, especially fathers, have a critical role to play to ensure that breastfeeding is happening at household level. Most of the time in our context, they are the decision makers. So they are actually the one who can ensure that the mother has enough time, even at home, for breastfeeding. While the father is supporting and taking care of some other activities that's probably the mother was doing when she was not pregnant or when the baby was not yet there. So we really encourage fathers to play their role in supporting the mothers. We encourage male colleagues because sometimes they are the problem. To encourage, to support their female colleagues during this period. Some of the employers have unions. Sometimes unions are still very led by men in the companies. So issues like breastfeeding, issues that are related to maternal health, did not usually make their way unless the leaders of those unions are sensitive to those issues. So they should be the one actually pushing for employers to accommodate, to have these baby-friendly spaces at the workplace. We also believe that the 2 weeks provision for paternity leave, as Veronica mentioned, it's actually for the fathers to basically be also breastfeeding, not literally, but be there.
Being there to assist.
Be there for the mom. And also they should accommodate their timetable. If you use as a father, as a man in the house, you know, after work, to stop with friends, with colleagues for 1 or 2 hours before getting home, when there is a newborn at home,
Yeah.
I think this is a habit that needs to be changed. You
Yeah.
need to be there for the mom and remind her also that, oh, from what I know about breastfeeding, this is something that's critical for our child, that's critical for the nation. So I'm here to witness, to make sure that you have anything you need to make sure that I have the most intelligent child.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. I mean, we usually have this you know, the instances where we say, something like in the African setup, when the child is bright, the dads would say, yes, this is me. And then others will say, yeah, that's from the mom's side. But again, they can contribute to this by just being there and offering the necessary support during this 6 months. Okay, I hear that. But even so, and during the break, we were having this conversation based on the question, not question, but a comment that one person said and said, now we're seeing a lot of women, not only in the Western world, but even here, who there are others who deliberately choose not to breastfeed, or others would easily fall back to milk substitutes just because they do not want to breastfeed, because of the myths that we have had that is out here. So I'm just curious to understand, so what is the danger in the same, should there be like sort of like regulations, and especially for those women who say, you know, I'm not going to breastfeed, right? And if that is the case, then what's going to happen to this baby who is fully dependent on breast milk substitutes? What's going to happen to them?
One of the things that you know, as a ministry we are pushing or we are promoting is sometimes these mothers make that decision from an informed point of view, you know, knowing the benefits of the breastfeeding the child, what it means to the cognitive function of this baby, what it means in terms of incidences of morbidity or even death, and therefore it's continuously educating the mothers. And that's why we want to catch them during the antenatal clinic so that they understand why when this baby comes, the points of feeding, why you have to exclusively breastfeed for the 6 months. Because when you talk with the mothers who, you know, who say, oh, my breast will sag, or it's because, you know, you are looking at yourself, not the best interest of the child.
That's true.
And, you know, Kenya passed a law in 2022, the Children's Act, and it provides for the best interest of the child. And because this child is voiceless, so as the mother, you are the voice. And therefore, we encourage the mothers to seek even counseling services, because we do counsel on breastfeeding, so that we give the mother the confidence to be able to breastfeed. Because that narrative of, oh, I don't have milk, it's neither here nor there. But we support, and that's why the support, what Ismail has mentioned, is very important. Support so that psychologically the mother is prepared and the milk will just flow. And even if you didn't breastfeed, as you age, the breast will suck.
I mean, it will happen eventually. So why deny this baby now? Okay, all right.
Exactly. No, maybe quickly to add to this. This is a child right. This is human right that we are discussing actually. It's not really, I mean, it's still the choice of the mom to say I'm breastfeeding or I'm not, but I think mothers should understand that this is a child right to have the best start in life. We have mentioned here that bottle feeding or formula milk, the child actually stomach is not prepared to digest before 6 months some of this baby food we are providing, and that's where you are seeing all the allergies coming. Most of the children who end up being allergic to some of the food, this is because they were not exclusively breastfed for the first 6 months. we mentioned, especially among Africans, the lactose intolerance, right? And evidence are showing that this is very, very less common among children who have been adequately breastfed compared to other children. So yes, mothers could say for personal convenience, I'm not breastfeeding, but as Veronica said, sometimes it's just that the mother is ill-informed. Because if she's aware of all the consequences for the child, if she knows that, okay, for this period, maybe you are not breastfeeding for 6 months, you are happy, but you are going to spend the next 10, 15, 20 years taking care of the consequences of your decision. Maybe they will change their mind. We are looking at the trends in obesity among adolescents today. We have established the correlation between exclusive breastfeeding and the adolescent child weight. And we know for sure that children who have been exclusively breastfed until 6 months and adequately fed until 2 years at least are less likely to become overweight and obese. So these are messages that the mom and the parents overall should have.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not about you, it's about the baby.
Absolutely.
I see that. Okay. And even Veronica mentioned the fact that there's some women who would go through this process because they lack awareness, they lack information, and it's very easy to watch from the outside thinking, but you should know this. I mean, you're a mom, you're a woman, you should know some of these things, but it doesn't come as natural as sometimes we think it should. And one of the things is the intervals, right? So Mr. Teta, I don't know whether you'd want to contribute towards the intervals as far as breastfeeding is concerned. There's some people who say after every 2 hours, others say after every 3 hours. Maybe others have babies who have like huge appetites. They want to feed after every single hour. So what is the recommended, and especially for the first, maybe like 3 months and then first 6 months as the child, you know, develops, and does that change over time?
Yeah, that's an important question. The theory says the child should be breastfed on demand, but what does that mean? Right, because usually at that age they are not speaking. We rely on them crying. Etc. And this is once again why breastfeeding is important, because when a mother is used to breastfeed, she knows exactly through the signs when the child wants. Usually it's going to be head movement, trying to be with the mom, etc. So the recommendation is that you should do that on demand. But more concretely, during the first 2 months, we said 8 times a day is the recommendation. But again, even the science could not define the relation and the understanding a mom has for the needs of the child. Etc. So this is kind of a broad recommendation, but once again, it's really to the mother to know when is the need. One thing for sure is that if the child is starving, the child will cry, the child will express this one way or another, that mom, it's time for breast milk. Veronica mentioned it, breast milk is it's just like a water pump that you have at home. If you are not using it, it's not going to flow. So the more the child breastfed, the more the mother also has will have the milk. I'm taking the opportunity to mention also one key recommendation for breastfeeding is that mothers should actually ensure that they empty one side before moving to the other. Because actually, breast milk, we have what we call the first and the last one, which is more rich in lipids, etc. So you should always ensure that the child is spending enough time, not moving from one breast to another, but spend enough time until you feel that this one is empty, the child has had all what was needed before moving to the next one.
I've seen others, so they'll put the baby on one side and then they would express on this other side. So I don't know, just to make sure that they empty both sides. So women would say so. So I don't know if this is also recommended, this also works.
I would think that just mechanically expressing the breast milk, you are getting from the beginning to the end if you express for a long time. So the child will still have, you know, the very fluid part of the breast milk, which is very rich in sugar, which is at the start of the breastfeeding, and the one that's more rich in protein and lipids at the end. So especially for mothers who are working, since we are discussing that topic today, we are also encouraging the expressing of breast milk when you cannot naturally breastfeed. So I don't think it's an issue here.
Okay. All right.
And I think maybe just to add, it's also, you know, to enable the mother, you know, as you breastfeed one breast, even the flow in the other continues.
It continues, yes.
And depending on the baby's stomach capacity, the baby may just need the milk on that one breast. So if you don't express the other breast, it will be full and gorged. And of course the milk flow will be affected. Therefore, it's important that, you know, as the baby is feeding, even automatically the other one flows, so it becomes easier to express.
To even express,
and that milk then can be stored for later feeding.
And talking about storing, how long is the recommended time? Because again, some people, due to lack of awareness and information, might store it for longer and then give the baby, you know, to a point that it's not viable, it's not safe, and all those things. So when it comes to storage, what are some of the conditions for storage, and how long should you know, expressed breast milk be stored, just to make sure that it's safe for the baby? Because in as much as we're promoting milk from the breast as compared to the substitutes, but safety is also an issue when it comes to storage.
I think it's also important to first of all say, you know, how you store that expressed milk. Because we are also looking at the hygiene. It has to be hygienically stored. And therefore the recommendation is that the mother, because now you understand the amount, the volume of milk that a baby takes, it's good to store it in those, you know, like a feed. So that even if you are going to, because we also say you can freeze the milk, freeze portions that once you thaw, they are enough for the feed for that child. But then what happens to mothers who don't have refrigeration, you know, facilities?
That's true, either at workplaces or even at home.
Exactly. So that breast milk, so long as, you know, the container that you express is hygienic, it was well cleaned, the area where you are putting is also clean, the milk can stay in room temperature for even up to 8 hours. In areas where they are hot, you know, just the way we do, you know, the indigenous technology of storing, you can put the containers in water, you know, so long as they could start them in water, it also prolongs. But within 8 hours, the milk is safe.
All right, so this is in room temperature.
Room temperature.
When one decides to sort of like put the milk in the fridge, and also for the freezers. For the freezers, they can stay up to what, 6?
For freezer, it's just like the way you freeze. Like personally, I did for my, you know, freeze. I had frozen a lot of milk. A lot of milk that even can go even to months. But the key thing is store an amount that the baby will finish. Because we don't want to you remove the freezer,
and then
then you keep it in the fridge. You will introduce some contamination. So the bottom line, serving portion that the baby can finish.
Absolutely. Okay, can I take that as your parting shot and then allow Mr. Teta literally 10-15 seconds to conclude this whole conversation as far as breastfeeding is concerned?
No, I think this is an important week for Kenya. This is an important week for the world. Just to remind the mothers, the fathers, and the society how important this first vaccine is for the children, and also, especially this time around, that the topic is around lactating women at work. We are really calling on employers to ensure that they have all the necessary policies, all the necessary measures measures in place to have lactation stations at their workplace.
Absolutely. It's a collective effort, if we can say, from the employer, from the colleagues, all of us coming together to support this lactating mother, so that, again, like we said, it's for the interest of the child that they are breastfed and exclusively for the first 6 months. But it doesn't stop there, because a lot of people stop there. It doesn't stop there. This can continue up to 2 years. But all the same, thank you so much. The conversation has begun. We have a whole week to talk about this, and even after the breastfeeding week, we should continue with the conversations. But for now, allow us to say goodbye. Thank you so much for staying with us. Ms. Veronica Kirogo, Director of Nutrition and Dietetics Services from the Ministry of Health, as well as Mr. Ismail Teta, Chief of Nutrition from UNICEF Kenya. Thank you so much. Thankful conversation we had this morning, but let it continue even on our social media platforms at NTV Kenya, both on Facebook and on Twitter, and on our YouTube channel, that is at NTV Kenya. See you tomorrow, same time, same place, right here on your world. But until then, stay safe and support lactating mothers. Goodbye for now.